Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see, special presentations and proclamations. Let's see, Sergeant Trampus, do you want to give us an update, please?
Good evening. My name is Christy Trampus. I'm the traffic sergeant for the North Coastal Sheriff's Station. And tonight I have my captain here, Shane Watts. So the presentation that we're going to go through is for the traffic statistics for the month of March. We did a little bit different of a presentation this month, hopefully addressing a lot of the questions that you have had in the past. So first is that long list of all the citations that were given. It's a long list. You guys can go through it. But at the end, we basically summarize our four main citations that you guys have been asking for: the speeding, cell phone, stoplight, and stop sign. So there are the citation counts for March right there for the main four. The next slide is a heat map that shows, hold on one second. So that is a year-to-date heat map of all the collisions for the year of 2026 for Encinitas. And then on top of that, as you can see, the color-coded circles, those are citations that were issued just in the month of March. And on the bottom corner of that map shows the top four that we're writing: the cell phone, stop sign, red light, and speeding. So as you can see, we have collisions all over the city, kind of sporadically all over the city, but some of the areas like the 101, El Camino Real, Encinitas Boulevard, we have a few more. So we're trying to really focus our enforcement where our collisions are happening. Next slide. And then last month, you guys had asked us, where are we seeing the speeds over 65? Where are we issuing citations with speeds over 65? So this map shows that. Last month, all of those citations were written on El Camino Real. So that's what this map shows, the locations of where those citations were issued. And then these are the collisions for the month of March. These are all the locations of the collisions we had. We had one bicycle collision, which is good. It was down. E-bike, pedestrian, and then vehicle collisions. Those are all the locations. These are a map of where we had all of our DUI arrests. So you guys can see where we're making our arrests for DUIs. A lot of them on Encinitas Boulevard, off the freeway, and we're mostly down in the downtown area. And then this is a heat map of the year-to-date DUI arrests, just for the entire year of 2026, where all of the DUI arrests have been made. So a lot of them on the 101, Encinitas Boulevard, some on Leucadia, and some on the freeway. And then this is what we've shown before, basically just comparing DUI arrests of this year to last year. We had 11 arrests last month. I know it's a little bit less than the month before, but it was encouraging because I spoke to our DUI traffic vehicles, our deputies out there. They've actually noticed a decrease in some of the bars that they were getting a lot of DUI arrests out of. The bouncers are really encouraging people to take Uber and Lyft. So they're really seeing a decrease in people leaving the bars that are intoxicated. So our arrests have gone down, but that's not a bad thing. Traffic collisions are up, and I looked into this. We had more pedestrian and more e-bike collisions last month than normal. And so I kind of refreshed my memory, went over them before the meeting today. And if you want some specifics, I can give them to you. But in looking at all of those, a lot of them were just kind of, I don't want to say not something we could prevent by doing enforcement, but some of the pedestrian ones were like a vehicle colliding into a pedestrian in a parking lot. Someone crossing a street. I did notice a common denominator. If you want me, I can go over details, and you can ask questions at the end. And then our traffic blitz. We did include our stats for our monthly traffic blitz because you guys have been asking for that. So for the month of March, we issued 100 citations on our one traffic blitz day, and then 21 parking sites. Any questions?
I have a few questions. First, I want to thank you for the great report, Christy. Really excellent. And I especially appreciated the map of the 65 mile per hour citations, which is where we expected them. But it showed that that was the case, at least that month. And you did highlight a little bit about the Pete's collisions, the e-bike and the bike. You didn't really mention the e-bikes. Were there any specific cases? I think it's important, for me at least, to hear some of the details, especially in these three categories, since they're the most exposed people.
Of course, I can go over the details if you'd like. The e-bikes, the collisions we had, one of them was a 15-year-old juvenile riding on the sidewalk. A vehicle was exiting a parking lot, looking to their left. So the kid was riding east, the wrong way, on the sidewalk at a high rate of speed. The vehicle didn't see him coming and pulled out, and they collided. Another one was a 72-year-old riding an e-bike. We showed up, and he had gone down. We don't know why. He doesn't remember, but he had gone down on his own. He doesn't believe he was hit by anybody. Another one was a 63-year-old riding an e-bike behind a vehicle, and he illegally passed on the right as the car was parking, and they collided, so it was the e-bike's fault. So those are the e-bikes. The pedestrians, we had a 92-year-old driver in a parking lot just not see a pedestrian and hit them. Another one was a 77-year-old driver making a right-hand turn at 101 and D, and a pedestrian stepped off the sidewalk and they hit. Another one was a 68-year-old driver. They were coming out of the YMCA parking lot. They were looking left to try to enter onto Saxony, and they did not notice a pedestrian crossing legally in front of them on the sidewalk, and they hit the pedestrian as they were pulling out. And another one was a skateboarder on Santa Fe going westbound. There was a witness to this, and they swerved out of the bike lane into the regular traffic lane, collided with the motorcyclist. Motorcyclist went down, and skateboarder took off. So, yeah, just kind of random. Last month was a little bit random. Like I said, nothing that I feel like we really could have increased enforcement to prevent this. Just kind of some random stuff that happened last month with those.
Okay, I have one other question. Thank you for that. Are the DUI arrests being done in random? Is it resulting from random arrests, or is it from our new DUI patrol, or is it from our dragnuts where we set up? I don't know if you had any this month or not, where you pulled over everybody.
We haven't had the dragnet thing this month. It's been just going out and doing enforcement. Some of them have been radio calls of citizens calling in, witnessing bad driving. I can recall one off the top of my head of where two people called in a bad driver, and we found them and they were DUI. Some of them are collisions that we respond to, so it's been a little bit of everything.
And then if I can just interject, the whole e-bike conversation is something that we've really tried to take a proactive enforcement and education. And so we were looking at and this chart that you now have, we really examined all of our collisions involving bicyclists, including e-bikes, for the year of 2025, so that we could see, because I thought it would be important to be able to see, are we dealing with, what age group we're dealing with, what times are we seeing these, to see if we could somehow, increase our enforcement during those times. And I was really curious, when I saw the actual numbers, you can see, so bicyclist on the column on the left, it tells you the age at the top of that chart. So the first one, at 1 a.m., we had a 17-year-old who crashed on a bicycle. And then you can go to the next collisions that we started to see was at 7. That involved a 38-year-old, a 65-year-old, and a 70-year-old. And then also an 83-year-old. So I thought that it was fascinating to really get down into the data to see what we're looking at. And what we are seeing is, there's been conversations about the e-bike laws that we have at our disposal that we could implement here as a city. But that focuses on riders that are 11 and under, prohibited. As you can see from the ages, and we actually did another chart where we went back to 2022, but really the demographic that we're seeing is that 13, 14, and 15. That's the age group we're seeing. So, we're working with the city to see what we can come up with so that we could target the age group that really is the ones that are vulnerable and crashing on our roadways. A lot of that is going to be education, working with the schools, also with Safe Streets. We work with them quite a bit. Just to get out and get that out to the parents is really what we're trying to get to, is educate the parents on what they're providing their children, and then encourage that safe riding behavior. One of the other ideas that we are looking at is, and this is outside the box, but we've been very successful with outside the box approach, and it would be something where we now have e-bikes that we have bought for the deputies. And we would have like a ride to school with a deputy. So we could meet these kids at a location, and then we could all ride to school together, and same way coming home. To reinforce those good riding behaviors and make sure that we're wearing our helmets, we're following the laws of the roadway, and we're sharing the roadway in an appropriate manner. So that's an idea that we're putting together. And then going back to the DUI enforcement, we do have the 2 DUI enforcement cars that now cover 7 days a week. The goal of that is to, for one, prevent DUI collisions from occurring by removing them from the roadways. But as we increase our enforcement, the hope is that people will start making better decisions. They'll know that we are out there, that if they choose to make that poor decision to get behind a wheel while intoxicated, there's a strong, high likelihood they will be pulled over and taken to jail. I was encouraged when we spoke to the traffic deputy that is currently doing it, and he said that the ride shares now at some of our local establishments are increased. So that's great news. I would love to see that we don't have any DUIs because people are making good choices. But we are out there, and then really the goal, like I said, is we don't want a tragic situation to occur. We have gone 12 months now without a fatality in our city. And that is amazing when you're looking at, we all watch the news. We see these tragic collisions that are occurring all around us in other jurisdictions. There's fatalities way too much. But I think that our city, with your support, with our partnership with Safe Streets and some of the other programs, we have really, really made a difference. And ultimately, I get, every time I think about Emory and the loss that we had there, I can't help but think how many lives she has saved, because she really changed what we do here. She changed our approach. We have groups now that have been established because of her, And I think we are moving in the right direction. And I think the fact that we have not had a fatality on our roadways is a huge accomplishment. And we will continue to keep working towards that. And, the whole Vision Zero. I don't want to lose one more life on our roadways.
And I just wanted to add one thing. Dan Nutter, Director of Engineering and City Engineer, and Captain Watts kind of alluded to this. There was a council-initiated item that came through council, and staff has been directed to look deeper into some potential avenues for e-bike safety. That can be comprehensive in education, in ordinance changes, things of that nature. So there are a handful of departments within the city, as well as the sheriff's office, that have been having regular meetings, and this will be something that we bring back to city council in not too long. So just wanted to give the commission that information if you guys did not know that had already been a council-initiated item for us.
Oh, Abe, if you'd be so good as to rewind to the previous projection. If I can get a clarification on the color code. Yeah, from the projector, yeah, the paper, yeah. So what's color code mean, the yellow and the?
The color coding is just to help break up the counts.
Oh, okay, but as far as the yellow versus?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that update. That was really, really enlightening. Any other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, just one. Thank you. That was great representation of the information. Question, Dan, if one of the items, is it, and I'm curious to find out the opinion of law enforcement around the age restriction of e-bikes that's happening in Carlsbad and some of the other places, and I think that's on the table as part of ours. And looking at the stats, the other one that we just took down, under 12, 2024, it looked like it notched up, 22, 23, but that can be attributed to just the increased use of these bikes across the board every year now. But I am curious, because I'm on the fence about it, whether this is something that you restrict entirely under the age of 12 and how those other municipalities decided to make that age the cutoff, what we're thinking there, in general.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll interject. So we have seen some other agencies that have implemented that. It comes down to enforcement. And we cannot just pull somebody over because they look like they're 11, right? So we're going to have to observe the inappropriate, illegal riding behavior for us to even get to that point. So that's why I did a deep dive into this, just to make sure that, putting laws on the books just because isn't always the answer. I think that a lot of this, we can take on with working with the schools and that education, but it does not capture what we're seeing and what we have seen historically, that age group, 11 and under, as you can see from both charts, it's that 13, 14, and 15.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, thank you again. Okay, next is oral communications. Amanda, do we have any oral communications?
We have one
Okay,
public
thank you.
speaker tonight. We have Chris Giles. Oh, we have two. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Chris Giles, District 2, and thank you all commissioners. I sent an email to this, but it didn't quite go through, so I'll resend it. It has some links and stuff to what I'm going to be discussing today. In regards to the proposed Class 3 bike routes that are on tonight's agenda, Commissioner Medak had proposed some different routes, and I wanted to offer a a solution, an option, so that we can get some more information to go off of. I want to introduce a bike route mapping app called Bike Streets. If you're not familiar with Bike Streets, it's a user-generated mapping app that lets local residents curate the safest, most chill routes in Encinitas. And unlike apps such as Strava, which prioritize distance, speed, PRs, and that type of thing, Bike Streets is focused on developing the safest cycling routes for all ages and abilities. Community members can add routes, road hazards, construction, bike parking, and other relevant notes. And in contrast to Google or Apple Maps, which rely on large-scale data and algorithms to create their maps and suggested routes, Bike Streets app's strength lies in its mapping data, which is created and refined by local residents who ride Encinitas streets every day and have firsthand perspective on infrastructure, traffic, topography, and issues. Bike Streets was founded in Denver, Colorado in 2018 and has expanded to numerous cities across the country. Beginning this year, a group of local cyclists has been developing a network of cycling routes on the app in Encinitas using the app. The Bike Streets data and maps could help to determine which routes in the city that the city wants to designate as official Class 3 bicycle routes. I know that this is on the agenda today, so I'd like to ask the commission to delay any route selection or confirmation of Class 3 bike routes and explore the Bike Streets app as a tool to create safer and most used bike routes network for Encinitas riders. And as disclosure, I'm not part of Bike Streets. I approached the founder and wanted to see if it would work for our city, and so I've been kind of spearheading the development of routes here in Encinitas. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Laura Van Dusen.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for your time and hearing me speak. I don't really have anything prepared other than the fact that I'm just following my heart to come up here and speak. It's been almost a year since Emery Chalikian was hit and killed. And she was hit and killed by a red light runner. Almost a year ago, I started coming to these meetings in these chambers to speak up for the children who walk our streets. I'm quite disheartened with the little action and progress that has been made. I know you all want to do something and you're trying, and I'm looking forward to seeing some action and some progress. I'm here just as I was a year ago to just follow my heart, and you know, this room was filled a year ago with concerned people, and not everybody has the strength, and the time, and the energy to keep showing up. And so I just felt really called to come here, knowing that the day that she was hit and killed is coming around the corner, and there are things that can be done, lowering speeds and focusing on intersections, and it's not tangible. It can't always be provided with data that a life was saved, but every little thing really, really counts, and I want you to remind yourself of that as you work together up there. So, and I also wanted to thank the Sheriff's Department for all the hard work that they have done enforcing DUIs and citations, and it all matters. So thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay. Agenda item number 7, approval of the minutes. Can I have a commissioner make a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second?
A motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, agenda item 8, action items, 8A. Let's see. I can go through this, or Abe, do you want to start out with any?
No, I just pulled it up, so I don't know if you want to go over all of them or one by one, each commissioner wants to go over.
Yeah, okay. So let's see, this is the matrix that you saw last month, and the grayed out areas on the top are the different work plan items that have been completed thus far for this year. Some of those items, when I say it's completed, that means that the involvement that the Mobility Commission has on the item we've completed. And so, it's either moved on with staff or with City Council as a recommendation. So let's see. So this evening, we're going to be talking about, work plan item number 2, 7, 8, and 9. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Meddock, and he'll talk about work plan item number 2.
Okay, so work plan number 2 is, there was a task that was set. I don't even know who originally set that task, but I stepped up to the plate. And David Teeley was involved, but then he's no longer with the commission, so Paul Templin has taken his place. And the project was to develop suitable east-west cycle routes in the city. And I appreciate Mr. Giles' comments earlier. I thought there were a lot of very good points were made. And the attempt that's been made so far, and I take responsibility for most of this, as Paul isn't really a cyclist and David wasn't. He left before we got around to the point of actually making some routes. And my attempt to do that was based on finding routes that would be suitable for the entire biking community. And presented those 4 routes. Let's see if we can find them. I think it'll be helpful. I'll go through one by one. Is that all right?
I think that'd be
It won't
most
take very long, I don't think. The first route is LaCoste Avenue 101 to Orpheus Leucadia Boulevard. That's a route that I felt was a pretty easy route that most people can manage. There's a problem with that route, which is getting to, if the cyclist is going to the other side of the 5, every intersection at the interchange, where the interchanges are involved in the freeways, is a potential serious problem for a number of reasons. There's a lot of egresses and entrances. Caltrans has control over those intersections, so sometimes things we want to get involved and get done to make them safer for cyclists are not readily available to us. I know that Abe is working on that in Encinitas Boulevard. In this particular case, really, once the cyclist gets to point B, in my opinion, the safest thing to do at that point is to dismount. Take the intersection is controlled with crosswalks are controlled, and that would be to go eastbound initially on Leucadia, and then if you're going east, to then go south, and then remount the cycle and continue. It'd be difficult. It can be done to go straight across, but that is not necessarily, I don't think, necessarily the safest way to do it. it has been suggested by a member of the public, and I did get input from members of the public, and I'm going to point to those. And this just came today, actually, was the idea of using Encinitas instead of Orpheus. So I think that's something to be considered. And Mr. Giles pointed out that it would not be a good idea to adopt any of these routes today. It was never the intention, I don't think, for that. I certainly wasn't going to be making that motion. I would oppose that. So I've asked in my comments for input. So we'll go to the next one, which is South Hill Camino Real and Crest to the Encinitas Library. Initially, I presented a route which would have gone over to Birmingham. It's not on the map here. And then down Birmingham in order to be able to get to Cardiff. It was brought to my attention and hat trip to Judy Barlfine that there's potential problem going down Birmingham at the intersection that, and it's the same kind of problem as was up at Leucadia and Orpheus. So I revised that map and instead went down to, I didn't see the cross street here. Anyway, down Melba, then take a right on that cross street. I haven't got it in front of me right now. And then a left on Riqueza, which goes, is not involved in any intersection at the freeway. And then follow that directly over to the street that goes to the library. And I chose going to the library because Riqueza is very steep down to Vulcan. It would be difficult for a lot of cyclists to be able to go up that. E-bikers wouldn't have a problem, but cyclists would. So I thought it was better just to end that at the library. The street from the library down to Vulcan isn't quite as steep. So we'll go to the third one, which is Santa Fe Lake to San Elijo, Liverpool. And this was also changed from previous with the same issue, which was going down Birmingham and crossing. Instead, this is taking Lake to Wood Lake to Villa Cardiff, and then going back up to McKinnon, using McKinnon to cross the freeway, and then come across to Liverpool and drop down to Cardiff. And of course, all of these are vice versa as well. And the point of all of these, of course, and I think everybody understands that, but in case somebody didn't pick that up, is the idea is to keep the cyclists off the main arteries, the busy arteries. So the idea is to find more stress-free riding, if you will, on residential streets, where there's just less traffic, less chance of collision. So the last one that's highlighted here is Encinitas Boulevard, Willow Spring, to Liverpool and San Elijo. And that's going from Encinitas Boulevard on Willow Spring, goes straight across over to what's point C here, which is, I think that's Sprucewood. I don't have it on my, yeah, it's Sprucewood to D. There's a little glitch here. I couldn't get that second blue line to disappear with Google Maps. Maybe Mr. Giles' app is better, and you can reach me through Amanda Berto with that app if you like. At Sprucewood and Crest, one has to cross the El Camino Real. That's a controlled intersection. And then you go across, follow Crest, over to Melba, down Melba, over to McKinnon, and then it's the same as the previous one. That's it. And I'm certainly open to comments, suggestions, improvements. And there's no intention on my part that any of these are going to be passed today.
So on the first map, the Leucadia map, what was your concern at Orpheus? Because I continue on Orpheus across that intersection. I've never had a problem. Or I usually use Orpheus to go right onto Leucadia Boulevard, for instance. So
I think going right is easy there, and I think you can go forward with.
Forward's okay because you just make yourself visible. That's the whole key always, right? Lights and bright colors and everything else. And don't be shy with your voice, particularly for pedestrian. Okay, yes, I don't really have, because I use this, essentially that route that you're showing there in blue. I've used that extensively. And yeah, I can vouch for it. It's good, depending exactly where you want to go.
How about some additional comments?
Here on good stuff, just a question like, and maybe this is for you, Abe, as well, like to do something like this, implementation, what does it look like? Is this just, if these were, and I understand we're not going to vote on these yet, but if we decide these or whichever roads through an app are good, safe paths for bikes, is it just like lane dedication of like a green lane that's a standout lane for bikes on these routes? Or what's the what would be the result of this and this route being designated? How does that get executed? I'm just curious.
These would be what are called class 3 bike routes. And to answer your question, those little green signs that you see with a bicycle on them, those designate a class 3 bike route. So at every turn, customarily, there will be a bike route sign, and there will be a arrow turning either left or right or straight forward. It's that simple. It's not any more complex than that.
Okay.
I wanted to ask Abe, while we're on this though, because when I was researching these on my bike, I came across a number of class 3 bike signs around the town. And I think that this task has been here for a while, but nobody's ever, from traffic engineering, has ever mentioned that there are class 3 bike routes. And so when I started seeing these signs, and I really didn't see anything that I would consider a full class 3 bike route. So can you tell me if there are class 3 bike routes that are planned or partially completed or?
Oh, there was a document that was adopted by City Council. I believe it was 2016 or 17, I want to say, our active transportation plan. The active transportation plan had some class 3 bike routes identified in there. We did implement some of those, but because there wasn't as that much engineering or even involvement by the MTSC at that point on that document, we basically only implemented sharrows that were demand for them, or where there was a specific pavement job going on. The road was being resurfaced, so we added sharrows with those. Most of the sharrows that we added during my time here were just with the R411 sign, the bikes may use full lane with a sharrow marking. There wasn't a specific bike route signage. The green signs accompanying those. It was basically R411 white sign with a sharrow marking sign.
Well, I know that on Ricasa, there are small green bike route signs, several of them. So somebody put them there at some point for marking a bike route. There's no sign about sharrows or may use full lane, anything like that. It's just a regular bike route sign. So I was a little surprised.
I can look into that to see if they were added as a part of the ATP. I don't think it was during my time as traffic. It was maybe before.
Yeah, and generally speaking, this is a issue that many agencies have seen with having a designated bike route, right? A designated bike route is typically identified, as Commissioner Maddock has mentioned, by a sign that says bike route. The problem with that is they're not necessarily easily identifiable of the extent of that route. So for that, bike routes, they're a good indication of a safe, easily usable route for bicyclists, but it can be difficult for bicyclists without some sort of mapping or otherwise marking for users to really have a good grasp of what that route is. So even though there have been some bike routes that have been installed in the city and signage for those, we have found, as other agencies have, that just the signage of a bike route can be insufficient. So, with that being said, there are other things that are being looked at, not just by the engineering department, but also development services, potentially park and rec, is, how can there maybe be some mapping associated with that so users can more easily identify what is an easier route and see where that is instead of just having the signage. Obviously, we do a lot of Sharrow markings as well, as the city traffic engineer mentioned, and Sharrows are generally a lot easier for users to identify and know where they're going. But again, I think if we have good GIS mapping that can be used by residents, that's probably going to be the best method for us to move forward. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like today, but there are, I think, a whole host of different platforms that other agencies are using and implementing, and we even had a great public comment about one that's been used. So those are things that are being looked into right now, and hopefully will be moved forward at some point. But we don't have a timeline on that at the moment.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on that, I've seen those signs, and I've kind of wondered that exact thing, right? Like, where's this going to take me? Most people aren't just out for a ride; they're going somewhere. It'd be great, like the one map to the library, to have like, if we were to really do something like this with a convicted effort, and then however it gets executed to educate the public on it. It would seem to me like, okay, let's find places that are destinations that people are riding their bikes to. And it's only going to increase with the e-bikes, right? But like Moonlight Beach, whether it be Cardiff Beach, or like the library is a good location. Like where, and I don't know the answer for this, but either common sense or some research, where are the most common destinations for bicyclists? And, then how can we get people there from some central point of where they would all funnel to then get to that spot?
Yeah.
And that would seem to apply some at least some good logical application that would then result in people actually using it, because it is a destination where people are going.
Yeah.
And maybe that app would be something that would help with that you just start seeing the traffic flow that way.
Absolutely. No, that's a very good point, Mr. Vice Chair. And just so the commission is aware, we are currently looking into a little bit of a potential pilot project where, and we haven't selected the school yet. We're investigating what school we may be able to utilize as a pilot here, but having a different type of maybe pavement legend or something for bicyclists within kind of a near school zone, so that way we are able to mark the lowest stress bike route kind of in that little vicinity, see if that's something that would be workable for not only that school, but something that we could also potentially roll out for other schools as well. So we're looking at potential markings for bicyclists as well as pedestrians to kind of have a little bit of a flagging of, hey, this is the route that's recommended for both walking and bicycling, and that would also give potentially some drivers a little bit of an added visual of this is a highly used school bike zone. So we're in the very, very early stages of looking at that. So that's still going to take a little bit of time, but that's something that we are currently in the process of.
Okay, I just wanted to comment. Commissioner Maddock, I'm really glad that you adopted this work plan item. And I think that the layout that you have works from my perspective, and the graphics really support what you're trying to describe. So I'm good with it. I don't see any reason why we couldn't move forward with at least a couple of these routes, as well as, recommending the app. But, I'm curious to hear what other commissioners have to say.
Hello. Oh, I do have the Bike Streets app, and I've only barely used it. It's great. I think it will be a great resource for you. I love this idea of, and I don't know if it can do this, but to take what people are already doing and put it together into something, because I think if you ride a bike around here a lot, you have your routes. Your route from inland to the library, I rode my bike here along that tonight, so I did that exact route. Yeah, so I think utilizing something like that, and we got to get a lot of feedback from people who are actually riding. I think that's all of my... Yeah, I guess my other point or question, and you kind of touched on this, is the goal. What is the ultimate goal of this? And maybe that's a question for council, but I wasn't sure if there was an end goal. You alluded to painting routes, adding signs. Like, is the goal getting people along these routes? Because that's a different focus than just what is the safest. We also have got to go with the most convenient, because no one's going to do safe if it's not convenient. So what is the end goal here?
I would suggest that it's to encourage people that are afraid to ride, because those of us who are seasoned already know we've already been doing this. I used to do this with the old AAA maps when I lived in LA. I'd always find some parallel route to avoid a major highway, but it's a big flat plain there, and it's pretty easy. So I think that's really what we want to do, is get some of the newbies and some of the people that are intimidated right now and say, you don't have to fight major roads if you don't want. Here's some options. I think that would be a legitimate goal.
I think another very important goal, and I totally agree with John, is that I made the point in the written report that these are by no means mandatory. It's just a guide. It's just a choice. But the idea is to make a choice that's a good choice and that's going to be accepted by the most possible people, so that we get an increase in bike traffic on those roads and a decrease on the roads that are more dangerous. And if we're successful at that, the big advantage on the residential roads is that the drivers, the owners, the residents know that that's a bike route, and they expect that. So they're going to have their eyes open for bicyclists, because there's a potential point of conflict at every driveway. If the people there realize that, gee, a lot of bikers are coming through here, and some of them may protest, some people may not like that, and that might be something that has to be overcome, because there's a big advantage to that. Once they become aware the bikers are there, they're more careful, there'll be less collisions.
Okay, let's see. So, Commissioner Maddock, do you want to move forward, try to move forward on this evening, or do you want to table it? We are kind of coming up on the end of our fiscal year, so the expectations are that we are, wrapping things up. So I'm just kind of curious from your perspective where you want to go with this.
I appreciate the desire to go ahead, but I really want to respect what we heard tonight. I have no problem waiting for a month and having people reach out through Amanda to me if they want to make input, and come back and we'll table it now, and then let's make a decision in May.
Very good, thank you. Okay, the next item is 8B, and that's, excuse me. It is work plan item number 7. And so this is make new Encinitas pedestrian friendly. And so in our subcommittee, we had different conversations. We met with the city regarding this, and Commissioner Duncan kind of mentioned that, and I mentioned this at our last meeting, that he was in Salt Lake City, and they had this concept where they have these flags that you put at the intersections, and you pick one up, and they're brightly colored, and you can take it and walk across the crosswalk and then put it on the other side of the street. It's a very simple concept, very cost effective. a lot of the recommendations we make don't necessarily have to be complex and expensive. So this is something that, we'd like to see it as a pilot study, perhaps 2 different intersections that we give it a try. There's at least, if you Google this, you'll see there's a lot of cities that have already done this. And, it seems to be pretty effective. The 2 items that I like the most is it makes pedestrians more visible at the crosswalks, and then secondly, in general, it increases the visibility and will increase public awareness. So, Commissioner Duncan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. I think the beauty of this is in its simplicity and low cost. We hear from, the public frustration of how long it takes to get things done, which I get it. It just, typically, it's a budgeting issue and infrastructure and lots of decisions and which, here, where for that. I wouldn't want to overcomplicate this. I mean, this basically can turn any intersection into its own crosswalk, with the crossing guard, I mean. You become your own crossing guard. In the submission, there's actually the one in Salt Lake that I saw. I researched it, and there's a website. It was started, I don't know if they were the original, but they have a website. It's a father and daughter that started this. And you can actually order the little kit for each intersection. It's literally a tube that holds, I don't know how many of these little flags. They're maybe a couple feet. Orange, neon, and you take one out, hold it up as you walk across, put it in the other one. All kinds of issues we could talk about, theft. Are they going to stay there? Who knows? Hence maybe the trial program. But just with such a limited cost of doing something like this, I just think it's a no-brainer. I can envision it down the road if we see that it's well accepted, there's no theft or very little, and they're easy to maintain, which would seem to be the case. You can almost do like the city could provide them. The one thing I'd want to see would be consistency. You don't want all these randoms, popping up and people doing their own versions of it. That the city would enable a process where a neighborhood can order them and the city would install them into an intersection so that we have consistent use of these in different places per the public requesting them. So it can go in any direction, but I would like to see if we can even make a decision now to put it forth, and I don't know where this needs to go, if it does need to go all the way to council for an approval of something as this minor, and whether we purchase them from the website that was in the submission package, or we could simply make them ourselves. And it's literally a PVC, probably a 3-inch PVC tube that could hold 6 of them or so, and you put them on corners of an intersection or just one on each end. So very simple. Love to see it happen.
Okay, I'd like to open it up for comments from the commissioners.
I have a question. I'm just reading the actual ask under the project column. And is the ask, about safety, or is it about making it more friendly, walkable, or both? Because I'm new here, I didn't hear this from the beginning, so I'm not sure again what the end goal of it is. Also, I think this idea is great. I just wanted to get the bigger picture.
Yeah, I wouldn't, it's probably not a lot more thought than just making it more pedestrian safe, friendly. I mean, it could have been everything from smoothing out cracks in sidewalks, to anything that would facilitate a safer, easier walking environment, and, whether it be crossing a street or just on a sidewalk. So pretty broad.
Okay.
Because it could be so many or so little that's part of what we want to make these things so that they're just workable and open to new ideas that we may not have thought of when we were trying to define what this project was.
I see a good application with the existing flashing light crosswalks, like on the 101 or something, because some motorists are oblivious. What's that flash? Yeah. So maybe that's a possible application test point too, just to see if it helps any.
I think that's a really good idea. I mean, I know I have a hard time sometimes seeing those flashing and when everything else is going on. I think that would be a great place to implement them. And yeah.
I'm sorry, are you saying to implement the flags
Yeah.
at those existing?
Yeah,
Yes.
put flags
Yeah.
so you can connect Lofty Coffee with Lofty Coffee, for instance, or whatever,
Right.
the one they have there,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
I also just want to say, in a more general way, I did a walk audit with Strong Towns a couple weeks ago. We started in the Ralph Shopping Center and kind of walked around. And the purpose was the same, to kind of look at safety, and also, they were asking questions like, it's super hot, there's no shade, that kind of thing. I am happy to look at what those results were if you guys want to see it. It would maybe open a can of worms and give you a lot of things, but if you wanted to present something to the council that is kind of a little bit broader, you could, if we want to keep it to this one agenda. I'm happy with that too. Just throwing it out there.
Okay, so one of the things that we'll be talking about a little later this evening is our work plan for 26, 27. So, the research you've been doing, that sounds like it could turn into a work plan item for you. Yeah. Originally this was supposed to be for intersections along El Camino Real. It was for new Encinitas. So, I'd like to kind of have a little bit more of a conversation on some of the intersections in that corridor that you think might be appropriate, for this type of program as a pilot. And I definitely could see it, along Highway 101 in the downtown area. We just need to decide like where we would recommend doing it,
I'm curious, Abe, what would be the resistance from the city to say, okay, we suggest 2 pilot intersections versus 10?
As you mentioned, this is not obviously METCD sanctioned or FHWA blessed addition to a crossing at an intersection. Personally, I feel like a signal is a active enough control at an intersection that we have the pit head, we have the multiple signal heads for each approach, at minimum 3 at El Camino, and mostly we have 4 red bulbs for each approach. I, similar to Commissioner Eldon, recommend, if this is Commission's direction, to implement a pilot of some sort at more of a uncontrolled, semi-active controlled intersections, where we have kids crossing at intersections but there's no signal, where we have e-bikers on their route to library, on their route to school, on their route to different origin destination corridors, similar to the route that Commissioner Meddock was presenting. These kind of corridors where we don't have a serious active traffic control in place, when there is a stop sign, like 99% that is not going to be used. We can put them there, but if there's a traffic signal, I really don't see anybody on 101 at a traffic signal at El Camino Real really picking up one of these. I mean, they might, but I feel like we have a better chance of improving the condition at a uncontrolled or semi-controlled location. Obviously, I would look into the legality and the potential liability. I want to be sure that by doing something like this, we don't introduce the city to extra liability unnecessarily. But assuming that's doable, that would be my personal opinion.
I'm also thinking stop signs, because I'm in Orpheus Park area, Pollocky School, that area, and I see people rolling Orpheus, Union Street, all these different intersections, just kind of rolling through the stop signs, and sometimes pedestrians kind of jumping out of the way or something. So that might be another application in addition to the mid-block situations.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to put any kind of criteria on where we locate them at this point. That's why we'd maybe want to do a pilot, test both, or just go with, at these kind of unprotected, designated crosswalk areas. Yeah. Because I was also envisioning potentially like Village Park area, right, through some of those residential streets where there are crosswalks. I mean, every intersection technically is one. Yeah, where we know there's a lot of kids going to school. Obviously, I initially thought the one I saw in Salt Lake was at a large intersection.
At a signal.
Yeah, at a signal. Specifically in this case, where Emory was hit, right there on Encinitas Boulevard at that intersection. There is a lot of pedestrian traffic at that intersection. And it is an odd one with traffic coming out of that south, whatever that is, UCSD Medical, there's some restaurant in there and stuff. That is just a strange intersection. So I wouldn't want to rule out a controlled intersection because there are some unique ones like that one that I think could benefit, because you got the dance studio, exactly what she was doing, going across to get something to eat, tons of residential people coming and going through traders, whatever the case may be. So again, I wouldn't want to put any specific criteria if we could just have an open conversation to get whoever it is to make the decision to agree, yeah, let's do this. Now let's figure out where we want to put them before we waste time trying to figure out where to put them and they say, no, let's not, we're not, because we can't accept the liability or something. So whatever that process is.
Yeah. So I think, Mr. Vice Chair, the process would be when the work plan is taken to council at the end of the fiscal year. Council will have the discretion of which work plan items they would like to transfer to staff for implementation or maybe further investigation, things of that nature. So I think that would be the next step if council is interested in looking at this work plan item further by staff. Then it could be something where we look at what might be a good logical pilot location or locations, something of that nature.
So if I understand you correctly, we're talking about moving it forward, but not identifying the specific locations. How do commissioners feel about that?
I think that's a great idea. So moving forward, this idea that we think it's a good one to try, and yeah,
A recommendation.
a recommendation for,
For the flags, but if I'm understanding correctly, maybe we're getting too specific to identify the intersections at this point.
I just agree with what Abe said, that it'd be more beneficial at the uncontrolled intersections. That's just my personal opinion. Where people already have a light, the motorists have a light to look at. Presumably, people should be looking in both directions before they enter that crosswalk, in my opinion, and keep looking around. But that at least is a very controlled situation. I think it's a lot more important to have an extra notice to the motorists at the uncontrolled situation, especially the kind that Abe was describing where there may be children present, maybe near a ballpark or playing field, something like that.
Yeah, so I think this is good reason to say, let's not specify locations. Maybe we can categorize them by types of intersections or types of that we would want to see this considered at, controlled, uncontrolled, whatever, however we define them. I'd be happy to create a more robust pilot description plan. I mean, we submitted something. So yeah, I mean, if that's the process, then is our work plan just once a year? So all these items, even though we've checked some things off, is it just once a year that the council will review our full plan of suggestions? Is that where we landed?
Yeah, that's exactly correct, Mr. Vice Chair. So the idea and intent is there'll be a normal city council meeting, and one action item at that meeting will be the chair and vice chair presenting the summary of the current fiscal year work plan, and then also presenting the draft next fiscal year work plan. And then there'll be a discussion and back and forth with the council members on direction for both the fiscal year summary and then also the future fiscal year work plan.
So at our last meeting, we voted to move these particular work plan items forward separately. So,
We-
but
so-
we're, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't, so the two that were voted on previously to be moved forward to council separately, that was the investigation of red light cameras, and then also reducing the age of e-bike users to 11 and under. Absolutely understand that that's something that commission wrote letters for, and we're moving forward to council on their own. As we have a specific set of bylaws that all commissions are going to be abiding by, that might change a little bit. There may not be the same leeway to issue letters directly to council, but our current bylaws do allow that. So, that's something that as a commission, you guys can still look at for any one of these items, and you guys have already voted on two of them to be done that way. So that's absolutely okay and appropriate. But you still will be going to council to give a summary of all your work plan items regardless.
Understood.
And when is that? What are the dates of those meetings?
We do not have that council meeting date set yet. I would anticipate for sometime in May or June is most likely.
So coming up, though.
Absolutely, in the next couple months. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, yeah, we're getting very close to the end of the fiscal year, so waiting another month, I guess, is not the end of the world. So if I understand correctly, then we're going to table this. You're going to go into, Commissioner Duncan, you're going to expand a little bit the pilot program.
Yeah, just try to put a little more structure around so there's less open conversation to say, okay, we've designated or we've identified the different types of intersections. Yeah, just to kind of put some more structure around it so there's some clarity to hopefully get a good decision.
Okay. Commissioner Maddox, do you have a comment?
To WP7?
Yes.
None other than the one I already gave.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I'd like to open this up for public comment. Do we have any public comment on this?
No public comments tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then, let's see, moving on to,
May I
Yeah.
mention we have WP9?
yeah, I was just going in the order, so I have WP8 here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, I thought you were moving to the next item. Okay.
No. Let's see. Okay, so WP8 is a policy on bike parking in commercial areas. And so our subcommittee, we did meet with a representative from the sustainability department at the city, and she informed us that they have a small budget for bike racks and whatnot that could be located in the right-of-way. So we have that to discuss. And then also just moving, as we progress and you have different types of vehicles from electric bikes to scooters to unicycles being used to think about where these vehicles go when they're in a commercial area. So let's see. One of the other things that we also did was research some of the other cities in Southern California, not all in Southern California, but just kind of a rundown of what they propose as far as bicycle parking in commercial areas. So I'd be real curious to, Commissioner Duncan, do you want to add anything to that? Because I know you did a lot of the research on this.
Yeah, just to mention, I did a drive around just looking at the different situations of bike racks, and there's some consistency and some not, but, basically, we put this on here to, think about, okay, is this a need? And I think part of the learning was there may not be an exact need for bicycle rack placement right now without further knowledge, and or after looking at the different cities that have bike rack placement programs or criteria or whatever, that the city just makes a move to do something where going forward, there's a standard practice, definable policies, and that kind of stuff. Because I thought I was finding something in the city, but I couldn't dig it up, like actual. some AI searches said, yes, Encinitas did have a policy, but then nothing would come up and I couldn't find it. So that might be a start, is just putting a policy in place, not to remove any currently, not to necessarily add any right away. So that's kind of where we landed.
Okay, so I'd like to open it up to the commissioners to comment.
Well, normally I'm pretty creative about finding places to lock up the bike, but there's a couple of ones that were really challenging. Like my ophthalmologist, dermatologist office, which is just north of the YMCA, and you go down that little road and then way down their driveway, they're at the bottom, and it's a real challenge to find any place to, I just need to post anything, and it's really hard to find anything there, for instance. End up parking the bike at the Y and then just walking down there. And then there have been a couple others, but normally I can kind of hunt around and find something that works. But that's one that really was stymied. And then another, my dentist too, at Moonlight Beach Dentistry, I've got a place where I park it, but it's a little tricky. You have to lift it up onto a wall and then chain it. So there are times when I've wished, it'd be nice to have some decent racks, not the wheel benders, but have them properly done.
I think it's really important in the commercial areas, which I think is where we're talking about for the most part here, that whatever bike rack model you decide, when you think about, plan on most of those bikes being e-bikes that are using those. And those will be different racks than those for what some people refer to as the spandex crowd, which I would find myself in. Those bikes are a lot lighter, a lot more delicate, easily broken. They've got derailleurs that are much more fragile than the e-bikes. They may or may not want to use those, or there can be some available for both. But they're going to be a little bit different, I think. I've lived in a student town where there were bike racks that were longer than from here to Manda at all the major places, and they were always filled because everybody rode bikes, the professors, the students, and everybody. But we don't have that problem, so I don't think we want to spend too much money in the beginning. Let's keep it modest and see if they get used.
Well, and to that point, and I'm not implying like we put racks in places. I think John's example is a great one. It would simply be the city has a process in place where if your dental or medical office or whatever, they don't have anything, you could say to them, hey, it would be great if you could put some bike racks here near the building. Or they would contact their landlord, and then they would just know, okay, there's a process, contact the city. Yep, it has to be within 15 feet of an entry, allowing no blockage of a passageway, a pedestrian. There's certain criteria that most cities have to make sure it's not obstructing anything, and it's within a reasonable distance of the usable entrance. So just some good common sense things like that enables a business to request the city to come in and place one where there's a need. And I agree, most are probably going to be e-bike type racks because it's people commuting, and that's what they're going to be commuting on, and or at least a more sturdy cruiser, heavier bike than the road bikes, for sure.
Well, the ones at the Y work for everybody. Yeah, the ones that's in front of the YMCA, there's two sets. Yeah. And so, I use my mountain bike, use my road bike. People bring e-bikes usually, and it works for all of us. Yep. So.
I do think that anecdotally, that there's a need for this, for more bike racks, just for me riding around. There are times when I just can't find one. So just to reiterate, I do think there is a need. And so what I think opening this up is a good idea and setting a structure on how that happens. I do think you might get businesses to reaching out saying, there's e-bikes everywhere. We gotta, I've been asked to move mine before, like you're blocking this or that. So, yeah.
Okay. So let's see, after getting the comments that I got tonight, I could kind of firm this up. some and bring it back next month, and then we can discuss it in greater detail. Okay.
With the objective to then, for the annual meeting or whatever, to discuss it in front of the council then?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Closing that.
Very good. Okay, now, on to work plan number 9. Commissioner Meadow.
So our subcommittee currently is Paul Templin and myself. Paul, has done a lot of the work here, and I'm going to try to report as well as I can on, it's pretty straightforward. But we've done a couple of things. I took the step of contacting Carrie Caffery, who is the founder of Savvy Cycling and developer of the American Bicycle Education Association's teen e-bike training course. And everybody here on the commission should have received a copy of that.
Was it emailed to us?
It should have been.
Okay. It came
I
from,
think that I sent it via Amanda. Yeah.
okay. Okay.
So what you received was a complimentary copy to be able to review the entire course. It's 10 or 11 videos, quizzes, and a final test. You were on the list, Lee.
I will check where that is, but I know I don't have it.
Okay.
I've got it, but it may have been from another source.
Oh, you did? Okay, maybe it's in a weird folder. Anyway.
I can always resend too. I'll do that.
Check your spam folder.
It was Amanda sent them out. I forwarded them to her, and she took care of it. So it should be in your email somewhere. Otherwise, I'm sure Amanda can get it to you. But in any event, the purpose of that was twofold. Number one, I know Carrie personally, and I'm very impressed with her knowledge. So I'm going to be admittedly partial to her, but I went through the course, and I thought it was very high quality. But we did reach out to another group in southern LA County or northern Orange County, I think in the Huntington Beach area, who developed their own course. They provided Paul and I with complimentary copies of that course, which we duly took. And I thought it was good quality, very worthwhile reviewing, and I can get that information to anybody who needs it. So we started by acquainting ourselves with what kind of things are out there. But then we very quickly began to realize that we don't know what the schools are doing in reality. So Paul took it upon himself to send letters to the Encinitas Union School District, the San Diego Union High School District, asking them what they were doing and if they would be willing to come to the commission. And he's received response. But Amanda brought to my attention that we forgot Cardiff. I don't think either of us were aware that Cardiff had a separate school district. So we're going to have to remedy that. But the other two school districts have responded and said that they would attend. And Paul was very good in discussing that they would give a 5 to 10 minute presentation. And I'm not going to go into the details now of what we did figure out that they are doing unless you want to know them. But the plan now is for them to come, present the programs that they're doing, and whether they think there's anything we can do in the city council to help them.
Sounds good.
And I just personally wanted to make the point that as a cyclist, and for that matter as a motorist, I think that infrastructure is very important. But if drivers aren't educated properly, there's no amount of infrastructure that's going to prevent fatalities and serious injuries. So to me, this is an extremely important part of what we should be trying to do.
Can I make one comment? I think the education is super important. Yes, let's do it. Let's move ahead. Just to offer one perspective and one potential issue. What happens, so these are all online, I think, courses. I know at home, I had a kid who was in special education, and kids who have ADHD, kids who have learning disabilities and reading disabilities. I think we need to just consider that this might not be the best way for them. I know it's a small population, but if we want compliance and if our goal is to have all kids be educated, those kids are riding bikes too. So just if we can think about, maybe it's a question I can even ask, what was her name? Carrie, who I'm curious what her consideration of kids who this might not be the best venue for them to learn. That's all.
In response to that, Lee, I asked Carrie if she could provide instructors because although the online courses are fine, they're, in order to really, in my opinion, in order to be out on our urban, very, very busy streets now, even in Little Encinitas, it requires a lot of education, a lot of consideration, and the younger you are, the less experience you have. It's just that simple. So unfortunately, when I spoke to her last about this about 4 or 5 months ago, they did not have a sufficient number of instructors to be able to provide that kind of instruction. She was working on that, so that's a goal that's being actively worked on. But the schools do have some hands-on. They have what they call bike rodeos, and we'll hear it when they bring their representatives here. And there are courses, so I think for those special needs students, it's very important that they get more than just the online instruction. There's instruction available, but you have to reach out to find it.
Right.
And a lot of people, what we can do is make people aware of that, but you can lead the camel to the water. You can't make them drink. So some people will reach out and realize that's very important. If we can affect those people, that's a big step in the right direction at least.
Yeah.
Okay, any public comment on this, Amanda?
No public comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're tabling this until our May meeting, and we'll have presentations from representatives from the school districts and then have a further discussion.
Oh, I don't think there's going to be a solution for quite a while with this. I mean, this is going to be an educational process just to find out what the schools are doing, and any help that they want, and then to figure out what we can do. So that's going to have something we're going to be able to resolve in in the next 1 or 2 meetings or anything like that, I don't think.
Okay, very good. Well, we can certainly, you've made a lot of progress on it, so that'll be good to present that to City Council.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and this, Chair, if I may, this could certainly be continued into your next year's work plan as well. We can say progress have been made, but there's still more to do, and it can be an item on the next year's work plan.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's see. So we're at 8B, and Abe, do you want to take that one over?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. So this item has been discussed, not comprehensively reviewed by this commission, but down the years, several policies and practices of the traffic division have been reviewed by commission, recommendations have been made. The division, as I've mentioned before, receives between 300 to 500 requests from public every year. And we have a staff member that day in, day out, pretty much most of their work is to go over these items received from public, evaluate the location, find out what's going on, what the request is, warrants, and then come up with solutions and provide the response to public and the communication. Sometimes these become larger projects that would require commission involvement, council involvement, but often these are reviewed with the internal policies that the traffic division operates on. And some of these have been reviewed down the years by commission. We did merge them all together with the changes that we had with the city to make sure that the commission, again, looks at all these policies all together. They're divided into two batches. One batch we'll review tonight, and then another batch will be next month. There's more policies. But to give you an idea, these are policies that when we receive a request from public, we evaluate their concern based on these policies. To go over the first one, this is a policy when a resident requests painted speed legends on city pavements, on roadways. As you can see, a picture on the side, a 25 mile per hour, a 20 mile per hour pavement legend painted on the surface of the street. The current policy that we have for these, again, to clarify, these are not 30, 40, 50 mile streets. For those, the city engineer, city traffic engineer has discretion. We evaluate those. We don't wait for a public request, or those are not for, like a resident would not request a classified road to get these. We can evaluate those ourselves. These are for residential roads, for non-classified roads. So to the policy itself, all three criteria has to be met. The street has to be classified as a residential street or unclassified in the most recent version of Encinitas mobility element of our general plan. This bullet will repeat itself in a few other policies. To clarify, the circulation element is pretty clear. The road is classified as a residential or unclassified. That's easy to identify. CVC also has a definition of residential district where it talks about how many dwelling units exist on one side of the road in a quarter mile or on both sides of the road. I think it's 13 and 16, 13 on one side and 16 on both sides. Meaning if you have 13 dwelling units on one side of the road, even though it might be classified as a collector road, for example, per CVC definition, it can be classified as a residence district because of the number of dwelling units existing on that road. So this will repeat itself. Just wanted to be clear on what CVC 515 is. The second criteria is the speed on the road should be at least 7 miles over the speed limit. Now, as you're aware, with AB 43 implemented the previous couple of years, many of our roads, their speed limits were lowered by an additional 5 miles. So it's much easier now to just be 7 miles over the speed limit. This would mean that the majority of our roads might get this criteria checked. We wanted to add this possibility of adding speed limit pavement legends to roads that really have a speeding issue. So we have the 7 mile posted over the speed limit if AB 43 is not applied. If AB 43 was applied to the speed limit on a road, we want to see 12 miles over the speed limit on the road to be the 85th percentile to check this box for this item, for this criteria. And then the third one, obviously, we want to have a certain number of vehicles on the road to put this pavement legend. So the 1,000 vehicles or higher ADT is our criteria. As mentioned, there is a still discretion of the city engineer, city traffic engineer, but this is our basic criteria for implementing these on residential, non-classified roads. I think, Chair, it would be better to just go over questions one by one, not to go into the end of the policies, if you're okay with it. So I'm going to stop here, and if there are any questions on this policy, I'll be happy to discuss.
Okay.
It's a simple question. What percentage of our residential streets, Abe, do you think meet the criteria of 1,000 vehicles or higher?
Oh, very limited. Very limited. I would say less than 5%, if that, yeah.
I have a question about number 2. So I understand what you're saying, that with AB 43, the speed limit has been reduced without looking at the 85th percentile. But I'm not sure why you need this at least 12 miles an hour above the speed limit. Like if we're saying the speed limit should be 25, shouldn't we apply this 7 miles per hour above across the board if that's what we want? So is there a reason for you to have a different criteria, whether it's AB 45 reduced or not?
I don't disagree with you on the logic of it. If council decided to lower the speed of some streets by extra 5 mile, there was a reason for it. It's just that we have several residential roads in the city that were lowered by AB 43 just because they were within I think a 500 feet or quarter mile of a school. And then the immediate adjacent road did not get that extra 5 mile reduction. So just for uniformity purposes, I feel like we have to kind of treat them the same because once that cordon is drawn, many of the roads did not get that 5 mile reduction. And now all those roads are 20 within that circle and out of that are 25. And then if we say 7 mile, two very, very similar streets would be qualified differently. That was my only reason for this, but if that's commission's direction to just treat everybody the same just based on their speed limit, I'm not opposed to that.
I think what you're saying, it sounds more like a case-by-case basis almost. So one street could change speeds pretty close together. So you have a 25 mile an hour painted, and then a block away it's a different speed limit. Is that kind of what you're saying?
And the next street would be different, yes, because the speed limit was changed on the adjacent street by 5 mile because of AB 43.
I mean, I'll defer to you about that. If you've thought it through and you have a logical reason to do it, I'll defer to the traffic commissioner.
Thank you.
Unless anybody else wants to.
Additional comments?
I mean, I think that Abe's reasoning, I agree with that here. It makes sense to me. And, I mean, basically it sounds to me like a small number of streets are going to be eligible for this.
Correct, and we do want it. It's intentional. If you start putting speed like 20 mile, 25 mile per hour pavement legend on 80% of the city residential streets, I mean, the cost prohibition of it aside, it loses its effectiveness. If as a driver, I drive every road on the city, I see 20, 20, 25, 20, 25, it kind of loses its, I guess, boldness. You want to emphasize on, okay, this is a little bit of a different residential street that you're seeing a 20 on a street that's really low volume, houses around. You want to kind of emphasize that this is a road that you have to really be careful about your speed of driving. So that was the purpose. It was intentional. We didn't want it to be. I mean, several of these policies that you will see after this, the same concept applies to it. Like we have the LED stop sign later on. The same concept. We didn't want half of the requests that we receive about LED stop signs to be granted, because then if you're driving around town and like half of the stop signs of the city are blinking, it would kind of lose its effectiveness. That was the opinion. Again, commission might direct us otherwise, but that was our position on these kind of. Okay, if there are no more comments on this, I can go to the next policy. This one is the implementation of temporary speed radar feedback signs. Again, similar to the conversation that we just had, we have some of these that are permanently in the city. These are the ones that shows your speed limit, and then there's a slowdown if you're above a certain threshold. Usually it's like 10 to 15 miles over the speed limit. Once you pass that speed, it would no longer show your speed, and it would just say slow down. Some of them are programmable in a way that if you're driving above a certain speed, it would just go dark. The intention for that when these were designed was that some people would just drive very fast adjacent to these and just take a video of themselves to show to friends that they're going very fast. So the designers of these incorporated this software patch in there that if you're above a certain speed, it would just turns off and it wouldn't show anything. But we do get requests for implementing these on different residential streets of the city. The policy on this one, there's 4 criteria. The idea is if there is a speed issue on this road, similar to the previous policy, 7 miles over the posted speed limit or 12 over the posted speed limit if AB 43 was applied. If the speeding issue was identified by collecting data, only one other criteria has to be met for them to get these temporary speed radar feedback signs for the duration of 3 months, and then will be revisited after. If the speed limit is not identified, a speeding issue is not identified, all the other 3 criteria has to be met. In other words, we're saying if the speeding is not that big of an issue, then more criteria is needed to be met. And the other three are the street has to be classified residential or unclassified, ADT has to be 500 or higher, and there should not be active transportation facilities such as sidewalks or bike lanes or other infrastructures on the road for it to qualify. And then after removal, obviously this wouldn't, because they would have it for 3 months. And we rotate these around town for different locations that we get requests for implementation. They would be off the list for a year. And we don't have, obviously, almost never the past 7, 8 years that I've been here, we had enough to put these on all the streets that request these. So we always have like a waiting list per se for these temporary speed radar feedback signs. I'm open to questions, Chair, on this item.
I have a question. Can you explain to me, I guess I'm dense, but number 4, street does not have active transportation facilities. How?
So the justification is...
What's the thinking behind that one?
The justification is if a resident requests this added to the road for a speeding concern or for a safety concern, we say if a road has sidewalks or bike lanes, that speeding issue is not as bad as a similar road that does not have a sidewalk or a bike lane. So if between these two roads, we were going to choose a road that would get a speed radar feedback sign for its minor traffic calming effect, we'd rather give it to a road that does not have those additional facilities.
Okay. Any additional comments from commissioners?
Yep. I have one super basic question for all of these, and apologies if you've said this already. Are these all brand new written policies, or are you editing or just revisiting them to see if they need to be changed?
No, these are actively being used by staff, but some of those have been reviewed by commission before. Some have been to city council, even not this time, but next month you'll see our speed cushion program has gone to council, I think 3 times the past 10 years. Some of them have been seen by commission, but several of them are only approved by our city engineer, by our director of engineering to be implemented.
Okay, and is there like a annual review? Is that what we're doing, or what's the?
No. So, Commissioner Ratcliffe, there is no requirement that these policies come to commission. So these policies can be directly implemented by myself as the director of engineering. Now, the city traffic engineer and I, we want to bring them to commission to get your feedback and input. If there are items that the commission has significant concerns about, we want to take that to heart, and we want to look at whether we need to revise any of the policies at all. As the city traffic engineer did mention, most of these policies have been taken to the commission at some point in time through the years, but this is a brand new commission. I want to get out ahead of this, and I want the commissioners to be able to see what we're doing day in and day out.
Thanks, and I really appreciate this. It does help me up here as well. I have a question on this particular policy, which is just an example of a road, and number 1, residential or unclassified streets. So, for example, I'm thinking of like Manchester Avenue, El Camino Real, before the freeway going south. Is that considered residential? And yeah, so that's not a place. So this is these speed feedback signs would be really in low speed residential areas only.
Exactly. That's the point, Commissioner. So the circulation element roadways, those are the large roadways that we have our eyes on nearly every single day. Actually, we do have our eyes on most of them every day. It is the residential roadways that the residents really had the best pulse on. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a resident to be able to make a request for El Camino Real. Now, we can have input, absolutely, but it really makes the most sense for residents to have a request for a residential street that a traffic engineer may not get to see more than 5 or 10 times a year. So that's really kind of the intent. And you may have even seen some of the recent speed radar feedback signs that we've installed on Encinitas Boulevard. We have them all over the place, but the larger circulation element roadways, we would be doing that as staff regardless.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful. Then I do not have any comments on this policy in that structure.
Okay, any other comments?
All right, the third one tonight is our LED stop sign policy. Similar to the previous policies, we have a criteria of five different ones, and we do want to see at least 4 of them met before implementing our LED flashing stop signs at a location. At least 3 collisions susceptible of correction the past year. It has to be located within half a mile of a school, park, or other major pedestrian generators. At least 120 combined pedestrians and bicyclists crossing at the location during the peak hour, and at least 3 vehicles running the stop sign during the peak hour. And the last criteria, the distance to the nearest controlled intersection is at least half a mile, meaning this stop sign might not be expected by a driver because the last controlled intersection that they had is far away. If you have back-to-back stop signs, that's usually brings it with itself some driver awareness about a different intersection control approaching them. But if you're driving on a road with no control for a relatively long time, you tend to miss the first stop sign after. And we're asking for 4 out of 5 to be met. And again, these are, like the previous ones, these are relatively tight criteria to be met.
Okay, I'd like to open it up. Commissioner Duncan?
Yeah, recalling back to the sheriff's report of the different violations that got tickets and stop sign running, number 4 does seem like, to at least 3 vehicles running stop sign during peak hour. I mean, that'd be a hard one to, cars are going to be running stop signs. Doesn't mean that when they're doing it, because you can't be there to prove it. So 4 seems like an excessively challenging one.
When we get a request, as mentioned earlier, these are all per request. We don't actively evaluate different intersections of the city. This is a request comes in from a resident that, hey, we live here or we drive here all the time and this is a good location. When a staff gets a request, we do collect video data during peak hour, and it is reviewed by staff to identify people running the red light. Now, obviously, we cannot issue tickets, but we will count the number of cars. Oh, did I say? Yeah. Run the stop signs.
You put out a video camera,
Correct.
surveillance camera?
Correct.
Really? Okay. Didn't know that.
So I live up Lone Jack, and there's one of these flashing red stop signs at the intersection of Rancho Santa Fe and Lone Jack. I personally find it a little annoying, but I understand the purpose. But I don't think that intersection would qualify with the criteria that you have here.
It wouldn't. No, those were installed prior to adoption of this policy, and I do believe at the time, 5-6 years ago, City Council was also involved. So that intersection, if I receive, well, first of all, as our director mentioned, that location would not qualify for a resident requesting it on Rancho Santa Fe. But if it was a qualified street, it wouldn't meet this criteria.
Yeah, and I think the important note here again is these policies are for resident requested implementations. The director of engineering has the ability to install these if there is a designated need. City Council also has the ability to direct engineering staff to install these at at any location where they feel that there's a need. So want that to be clear that, again, this is not, if there is a location that staff know and feel that this is an important implementation, it does not have to meet 4 of these 5 criteria. The 4 of these 5 criteria are simply because they are residential requests. So a resident request doesn't, you don't have carte blanche to get anything and everything that you request. We do have to have a policy in place to ensure, again, as a city traffic engineer mentioned, that we do not dilute our roadway system to such a degree that there is now an ineffectiveness of these traffic control instruments.
A very good case would be like last week at a city council meeting, there was a request from a resident about a LED stop sign at Cotter that was evaluated by staff based on this criteria, and it didn't warrant it. But that resident requested council include that LED stop sign in our future annual budget. Now, if council's direction is to implement, we will implement that.
Mm-hmm. But so at the intersection that I mentioned, I mean, this is kind of a personal matter, I guess, but it's not. It involves everybody. That infrastructure got put in. It doesn't meet the criteria for somebody to request it. Why is it staying there? Or do you need somebody to come and make a request that you take it away and put a regular stop sign in? The reason I'm saying it is, number one, because overuse leads to ignoring those kind of features, and that's number one. But number two, what I refer to as a little bit of the Las Vegas syndrome. Olievenhain is a rural, semi-rural area, and putting in a flashing neon sign doesn't really lend itself to community character. If it's really necessary, I can see it, but if we're not getting those crashes that you're referring to, I don't think there are 3 collisions there in 12 months. I'm sure that there aren't 3 vehicles running that stop sign during peak hour. I lived there for 20 years. I can count on one hand the number of people I've seen run those stop signs. How do people get rid of it? Because every time we add infrastructure, and we know that we have an ongoing problem that I've been referring to many times about that, it's very hard to get rid of it. So my tendency is, let's not put in any more infrastructure that's going to be hard to get rid of that ends up being counterproductive.
Yeah, I can look into the history to see if there was council direction on those or not, and then I can get back to you.
Thank you.
I think I'm hearing a flashing stop sign recycling program. Take that one down and put it somewhere else and put a regular stop sign there. New work plan item.
Second that.
Okay, any other comments on the flashing LED stop signs?
Okay, so this one, by a long distance, the most I would say sophisticated program. This, I believe, City of San Diego hired a consultant, and they spend a good amount of time and a lot of stakeholder and public involvement. They created a policy that several cities around use. This or a somewhat similar version to this, we decided to adopt this policy due to the fact that it's been running in the city of San Diego for a relatively long time, and it was adopted, and it's somewhat successful. So we decided to adopt this. This is for addition of marked crossings at, similar to the conversation earlier, at uncontrolled locations mostly. It's not like for signals or for stop signs. Those would, it touches in the end about stop signs getting crosswalks, but it's mostly for uncontrolled locations. The idea is there are basic warrants and there are points warrants, and there is treatments. So the basic warrant says you analyze a location to identify, it's a 0-1 situation, to identify if it can even get a crosswalk. it's warranted for a crosswalk. It's like it's eligible for a crosswalk or not a crosswalk. In other words, the basic warrants would say, can this location even be considered for a crosswalk or not? And this basic warrants, there's a pedestrian volume warrant. You have to have certain number of pedestrians crossing, obviously, at the location for even it being considered. The approach to speed warrant has to be lower than 40. Nearest controlled crossing should be more than 250. The site distance should be there. It should be visible, this location. Illumination, it has to have existing lighting and accessibility. There needs to be ADA access or can be built at this location. Similar with the illumination, you can add a light there. There is a possibility, or you can add ADA. So these 6 warrants all have to be met before a location can be even considered for a crossing. The second piece is the points warrants, where there is multiple criteria, and for each criteria, a location can get a certain number of points. 16 points or more is needed for a location to be eligible for a crosswalk, for a marked crossing. The number of pedestrians, they can get a certain number of points. The condition of the location, if it's in a commercial area, it's a shared use pass, there is a pedestrian generator, 3.4 points, and the general conditions of a location, if it's far from the nearest crossing. Increased visibility, the criteria is mentioned here. If there's a bus stop, so there's 18 points that they can get for different general conditions. And the last one is the number of vehicle gaps per 5 minutes to cross. There are a certain number of points for the number of gaps available to public to cross at that location that would allow them a maximum of 10 points. After a location gets 16 points and it's now warranted for a marked crossing, there is this table that based on the crossing distance that we're adding this new marked crossing and the ADT of the roadway, a certain number of improvements, a certain number of treatments have to be added to the crossing for it to be implemented. If for example, the road has less than 1,500 vehicles per day, no matter what the crossing distance is, we just add a ped warning sign and then a standard continental crosswalk. Between 1,500 and 5,000 ADT, the treatment would be different. We add a yield to ped sign, we add a RRFB, et cetera, et cetera. And then between higher volumes, we'll have obviously more refuge comes in, a pedestrian signal might come in. So this is not just, if it's warranted, we go mark a crosswalk there. We also have to be able to put the specific treatment, improvement associated with that specific location to be able to implement that. Now, it might get warranted, but then we might not have the funds needed to implement that crossing. Then it would go into our future unfunded projects, and then we'll try to find the funding for those. Not going into too much detail about the minutia of the policy, but there's also language about removing a crosswalk. That's the standard MUTCD language that you have to notify public 30 days in advance. If you're removing a crosswalk, obviously that's a very rare situation. And for stop signs getting marked crossings, this policy doesn't cover it, but it does say that if you have a one-way road intersecting a crosswalk, you want to identify a marked crossing on the other side to clarify for the one-way driver. And if for any reason there is a crosswalk that only crossing is allowed on one side of that always stop control, you want to mark that one-sided crosswalk to kind of emphasize for pedestrians that they shall only cross over that one leg. But again, this policy is mostly for uncontrolled locations. With that said, I'm open to questions about this.
Comments from commissioners?
So that you're just explaining this to us, that this is the policy that Encinitas adopted from the city of San Diego.
Correct.
Is it open to modifications?
As our director mentioned, these policies have been being used by city staff. If you have ideas or comments, we'll certainly consider them.
Okay, I'm just, so
these are not
I may include, since
MHCD.
I'm going to be kind of detailing the work plan for the crossing flags. Maybe this could be incorporated into something. I'll include it that maybe crosswalks that don't meet the criteria, right, for the right reasons, it doesn't quite fall into that first category of A, that, maybe the flag could be added to where it's just the first basic 1A, where that's only getting the striping, right?
Correct.
Maybe I'll just propose that in part of my thing. It's like, hey, maybe we can consider adding the flags to those intersections, because that'll help carve out selections of intersections for these flags to be considered at. Would you say most intersections right now in the city with crosswalks of any of these variety of detail fall into these proper categories now, or probably just out of, relic policies may not?
This is drafted very reasonably by City of San Diego. Once you go look at historically how you've improved your crosswalks in the city, you'll see that they kind of line up with the way, like the higher volume roads, there's usually a refuge in the middle, there's RFB on a little bit, higher speed roads, higher volume roads. So it is kind of drafted, but what you mentioned about the potential use of that flag would be this table. Would be, okay, lower volume roads, lower speed roads, we want to add the flag here. Right. So this would be an additional bullet added to maybe category A or category B. That would be the place for it.
And just to clarify, these are for uncontrolled intersections, right? So we don't have a signal at an intersection. We don't have stop signs at the intersection. So we do have very few marked crossings at uncontrolled intersections, and that's really done purposefully, because marking crosswalks in an uncontrolled location is not the safest practice. We like to try to have distinguished crossings where we have a controlled intersection. So whenever we have an uncontrolled intersection with a crossing, we do try to be as visually acute as possible. So that's why most of our uncontrolled intersections, you'll likely see a rectangular rapid flashing beacon associated with that. That tends to be the device we utilize most frequently at the uncontrolled locations.
Any additional comments? Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Chair. That concludes this item.
Okay, on to 8C. And that is our work plan draft. This would be the 26-27 work plan. And
Excuse me, Chair, before we get to the next, do we want to do a motion on this item to receive or recommend or support or make any changes?
okay.
This was an action item, so I would appreciate a,
Okay, can I have someone make a motion?
I move that we accept that policy, those policies. They all seem reasonable.
I second.
Motion passes. Oh, thank you. Unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. So 8C, and this is our work plan for 26-27. Just to give you a little background. I think I've mentioned this before, but, last year was the first year that we had a work plan. And, this is, each of the commissioners last year put different items together for our work plan. And it doesn't mean that you have to have done a whole lot of research already. The whole idea is that you're going to put it together during the upcoming year. There's, if you look at the template that Abe gave us, there's 7 line items. So I think what I'm reading.
It's not
between-
intentional, no, it's just.
Okay. Well, where I'm going with this is, we don't have to have this huge list of work plan items. So, but, I think it would be very appropriate if each one of us had a work plan item, at least one work plan item. And then, if there are some items that get carried over from this past year, that's acceptable as well. So, is there any topics that people would like to talk about for this upcoming work plan?
I have a few topics.
Okay.
One of them is going to come up on the existing work plan the traffic engineering has. That was recently added. It never went through MTSC, and this is the Parkdale Village Park Way intersection, which I'm familiar with. So that actually came to our attention when Mrs. Abby Brown brought it to this commission. Remember? She spoke about the danger there, and she challenged us to go ourselves and take a look, which I decided to do and went down the following morning and observed what was going on at that intersection, which I'm very familiar with. My son lives in that area and his family. And I agreed with her that it was actually a very dangerous situation there. I spoke with the traffic guards, and they concurred. In fact, the one was planning to quit because she was concerned for her own safety, let alone the safety of the children. So I spoke with Mrs. Brown. We had a long conversation, and I took the matter to a couple of the city council members, Councilmember San Antonio, who's from that area, and Deputy Mayor O'Hara. And the 3 of us went out subsequently and took a look. Actually, I went out a second time, and then the following week, the 3 of us went out. Mrs. Brown happened to come by again, or actually we made an appointment with her. So my point is since that was really an item that was initiated from the MTSC, I think it would be good if it continued on as part of our work plan, even though the city traffic engineering is now working on it. One of the things that we discussed was the possibility of a median there. That would require landscaping. So I felt that Chairwoman Trout would be a good addition to such a ad hoc subcommittee if she was willing to accept that responsibility.
I'd be happy to.
So just for commission to understand, this is a council item now. It has been elevated to council. They have created their own item. And as Commissioner Maddock, as you mentioned, that was Council Member San Antonio and Deputy Mayor O'Hara. So since it is now in council's hands, it will go directly to council. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't, as a commission, still have discussions about it. That's totally legitimate. The intent is we will go back to council and those council members much more quickly with a short-term, meaning near-term potential solution, and then potential long-term solution. So that's going to take off much quicker than the fiscal year 27 work plan would. So it may be a moot point.
Well, maybe we could just get reports here then. That might be the best way to deal with that. I think, Abe, didn't you, there are two flashing stop signs there. Are those new additions or were they there before?
Yeah, are you sure there at Parkdale Lane there's flashing stop sign?
Yeah, I'm pretty darn sure.
At Village Park and Parkdale Lane? I
Right.
don't think there are.
I'll check on the way home
Yeah.
and let you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see,
Oh, I had one more.
okay.
Actually, I had two. One is, I don't think controversial, the other one's very. So the first one I'll take is, I was thinking that a reasonable project would be to come up with uniform speed humps for the city. They wouldn't necessarily be able to be used absolutely everywhere, but the reason that I'm bringing that up is there have been bicycle crashes on some of these rubberized plastic speed bumps that we have in the city. An acquaintance of mine was almost killed on one. There was no signage on the street saying bump or hump. A shadow from a tree in the early morning obscures that altogether. This guy is one of the most well-known and experienced cyclists in the world at his age. He's raced forever. He was the trainer of the woman who broke the world record on bikes at Bonneville Salt Flats a few years ago, John Howard. I've repeatedly tried to get the city to put a sign there. Nothing has happened, despite my use of the Encinitas app. If it's rainy, those plastic humps are very dangerous. Cyclists on skinny tires can easily slide off of those, and on the side, they can crash. There was a recent crash, a serious crash in Carlsbad. Carlsbad has developed a uniform speed hump that's asphalt. It only rises at a certain rate. There should be a picture of the specifications of that, which I have, and I was asked to have those available if anyone wanted to look at it, but that would be sort of a starting point. And the reason it's very important is because there is always a controversy between emergency services and safety for pedestrians and cyclists, because there's a conflict between what they need and what pedestrians and cyclists need, and motorists for that matter. And so I'm trying to find a way that we can come up with a reasonable compromise that Chief Gordon can accept, and nobody else has made that initiative, so I think this commission should do it.
I think that's a really good idea for a work plan item.
Commissioner, the city does have a standard speed cushion design that was revised twice the past 8 years, mainly by input from our fire department. But the standard that you see, the 3.5-inch height, that is our standard too. The design of the cushions, the black rectangles on top that you see, I actually do not think our fire department, I don't know how their fire department approved this. The idea of the cushion in the middle is for it to be narrower than the distance between the wheels of the fire truck. So the fire truck would not suffer any delay, or especially with their heavier vehicles. The 7-foot edge to edge, I think, is way wider than the standard fire trucks distance between wheels. Those are mostly around 6. So this would mean that only one side of a tire of a fire truck can go through these. So we did have something similar to this 8-9 years ago, but our fire department, working with I think some other fire departments, gave us the exact dimensions that does support their fire apparatus to go through these gaps with minimal impact. I can send you the standard design that we have, but it's pretty similar to this with regards to the height. I'm pretty sure is 3.5. The length of it, I think it's similar, but it is kind of simple. But we do have, to your point, we do have. I mean, if it's a matter of concern for commission, we can certainly have it as an item and bring it at one of the future meetings for commission to review. I'll definitely ask our fire marshal to be here because they were the ones who pretty much dictated that design to us. But yeah, if it's something that commission is interested in reviewing, we can certainly bring it back to commission.
The ones that we see along Orpheus, for instance, where we used to have.
So
the hump
some
all
of
the
those are grandfathered. We do not do any more rubbers. The bolt-down ones are all grandfathered into the city.
No, these aren't rubber, these are asphalt.
Yeah, the asphalts are new.
Three
so-
sections, yeah.
Yeah, the three sections, those are speed cushions. Those are 3.5 inches, and those follow the fire department approved dimensions.
And generally, how the process works is anytime that we have a roadway resurfaced or there is a capital project within that roadway, if there is a speed bump or a speed hump that does not meet our current speed cushion standard, that gets removed and replaced with the current standard. So any of those bumps, the rubber bumps, Commissioner Meddock, as you're referring to, or any other speed bump or hump that does not have the geometry of our currently adopted standard, those do get removed and replaced as a project goes through the roadway locations.
Mr. Nutter, then the speed bumps that are on, I'm going to say Cerro and Willow Spring, for example, can we expect those to be replaced in not too distant future?
I likely won't be able to give you an answer off the top of my head. We'll probably have to get back to you on what it looks like the duration of our next resurfacing project for that location. But off the top of my head, and I know our city traffic engineer is looking for the location.
It's frozen.
Yeah, it's frozen. So that's something that I'm happy to get back to you on, Commissioner Meddock, on if we have that stretch of roadway with those speed bumps or humps in the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, I noticed that you gave us a copy of the current city projects, which was really nice. Was there any kind of guidance that went with this, or was it just for information purposes?
Before we go on to that, I had one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
So, and it's a controversial one. I'm just going to throw it out there without any detailed discussion, but we've had a lot of discussion about bollards and the issue of whether they're dangerous or not. There's been a lot of research done on that. I think it's been proven that in Encinitas they have been dangerous, and I don't consider them protected bike lanes nor safe. So I think there should be a work plan to basically investigate every single bollard in the city and determine whether there's any data or common sense to justify them staying. And if there's not, they should be removed. If there is, then they should stay. And that's it in a nutshell. It would affect a lot of things. So that's very controversial, and I recognize that, but there's been a great number of crashes due to those. I showed an image at the last city council meeting, a friend of mine who narrowly missed hitting her head on a wheel block, an asphalt wheel block in Cardiff, specifically due to that infrastructure. And it's an ongoing matter.
Okay. So just to kind of clarify, we can develop whatever work plan item we'd like to. So even if it is controversial, that's just fine. So
Well,
be it.
commission, I mean, obviously, this is your commission. What last year, if I recall, happened was commissioners voted on individual work plans. So each commissioner came up with their ideas of a work plan item, 1, 2, 3, 4. There was no limit at the time. And then each commissioner would present their intended work plan item, and the rest of the commission voted for that item, and then they got a score based on the number of votes they got, and then in the end, commission prioritized, okay, these are the proposed work plan items that got all the 7 votes, basically unanimously. All the other commissioners supported this work plan item, so this is the top on the list. And then you went down on the lower votes, lower voted work plan item. So next month, we can bring this back, and then commissioners can be more prepared with their own individual intended work plan items, maybe some supporting material if they want to present it to other commissioners to get more votes, and then we can do a similar approach next month.
That sounds good. Okay. So I was saying before that you only need to come up with one work plan item. Since we're going to vote on them and kind of prioritize them, you need to come up with a couple. And Amanda, would you be able to kind of send out an email to the commissioners that aren't here this evening? Okay, thank you very much.
Or if you need one per commissioner, I can take the bollards if you want. I'm fully in support of Ron's position on that.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Anything else on the 26-27 work plan? Okay.
Are we just spitballing ideas right now? Is that what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if we have any, I guess, way to affect, but the things that I'm thinking about are like light syncing around town. I know you guys have some of that going on, and I'm so curious, and I'll ask you probably somewhere else, like the Caltrans project. I know you're doing that, but the light syncing is, for me, I drive El Camino Real every day, and oh man. So I don't know if that's something we even have the power to talk about, work on, help with, but that's one thing. I also know that, well, let me stop there. If that's something that we can like work on with you, is light syncing around town.
Due to the, I guess, relatively sophisticated complications associated with, signal timing and signal coordination, we do have a consultant specifically working on 2 corridors on Lucadia and on El Camino Real. We recently hired them, and they're working on optimizing those 2 corridors. We also have started working with Caltrans, and MOU is currently being signed on our side to be sent to Caltrans that for the first time, I think, maybe not the first time, but it's a very unique thing where Caltrans would allow us to manage their signal timing. That MOU, if signed by Caltrans, will allow us to implement this new system called adaptive signal timing on Encinitas Boulevard from 101 all the way to Via Cantabria. That's our plan. We have the funding in place for a basic version of it. City Council is also, I don't think it's final, but 90% final, is planning on giving us additional funds for a more sophisticated version of adaptive signal timing along the corridor to be implemented in the next fiscal year. But we are actively working on these 3 corridors for better, more optimized signal timing.
So it sounds like not really something that needs to go on our work plan, but just you will update us.
After
Educate
implementation,
us along the way.
we will have before-after studies, and I can bring you the results
Kind of
of
what I figured.
the effectiveness of the program.
Yeah, and Commissioner Ratcliffe, just for your information, this city council is very, very in tune with, having our signals as optimized as possible. That's something that we also in the engineering department very much care about. So we are looking at a lot of our very complex locations that have a lot of delay concerns, and kind of trying to optimize those the best to our ability. One was Chesterfield and 101, another's Lucadia Boulevard and the 101, those and Vulcan. And those are very difficult just because they're extremely close intersections with the railroad, and there are a handful of others that we're really emphasizing on. But as the city traffic engineer mentioned, we do have a few corridors that are extremely important to us, and we want to make the flow of traffic as I think free flowing as we would hope and expect as drivers. Now the reality is to do complete adaptive signal timing throughout all those corridors is millions and millions of dollars. So Abe and his team are really doing. They're in the midst of doing a little bit of a lighter version of this adaptive timing and really signal optimization that should give a pretty good assistance to drivers through these corridors.
Yeah, I know you're working hard on it. I appreciate that.
And without the millions of dollars of price tag, just because unfortunately we don't have that funding.
Yeah. What about, we lowered speed limits around town. I think it's probably been about 2 years. Do we, and again, maybe this isn't a work plan for us, but this is what I'm thinking. How do we know that's working? Anecdotally, for me, it doesn't feel like it's working. Do we want to know that? Are we looking at that? And if it's not, if people haven't lowered their speeds, do we need to find other ways for compliance? So is that something that could be a work plan item? I don't know why.
Specifically, you're talking about AB 43. There was a before and after study that was presented to commission last year, I believe. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but what it showed was we basically went and redid the speed data collection at those roads, not all of them, obviously, I think it was like 20 roads or so, between 10 and 20, to see how the speed limit change how effective it was. The data did show that on higher speed roads, like roads that were 45 and became 40 and were 50 and became 45, it was way more effective compared to roads that were 25 converted to 20 or 30 converted to 25. Basically, the lower the previous speed limit was, the less effective the AB 43 implementation was. That was the finding. But pretty much at all roads, they were somewhat effective. It wasn't a ineffective change in the city.
And so we're kind of calling that.
Yes, we do have a council-approved policy with regards to how a road can be added to that list. So we have a criteria on a resident submitting a petition saying, I want my residential road converted from a 25 mile per hour prima facie to a 20, and how they can qualify. We need a petition, but how they can qualify is mentioned in the council-approved policy.
Yeah, and just so all commissioners know and understand, a commission work plan item is solely the work of the commissioners. So when you're thinking of some of these work plan items, these are not work plan items that are getting completed by staff. Staff are not doing engineering studies for them, things of that nature. So I just want you to kind of keep in mind, they do need to be items that the commissioners are able to investigate and research on their own.
That is helpful boundaries for that. I have another one, which is there is quite a few e-bike bills going through. There's one I found last week about being able to advertise a bike as an e-bike. I think it's Blake Spear has put something forward to say bike shops can, if this bill passed, can no longer advertise certain bikes as e-bikes if they aren't actually ones. Anyways, that's one example. I think there's 3 or 4 that went through starting January this year, and I think more in the pipeline. I feel like we could keep up with those also, because I know e-bikes we talk about it every time here, and ad nauseum. So and then we can kind of figure out if there's one like the one Commissioner Templin addressed last week or last month, if there's ones that we think we could utilize in our city. So that's another idea that maybe fulfills the structure.
Oh, that's a big issue. No, because I know Nico Sugius, who used to run Charlie's Electric Bike, named in honor of his late father, and he had to close up shop. He couldn't compete with all the people that were selling illegal stuff, and he, knowing his mom and dad, he's not going to do that. And so it basically cost him his business. So.
I know. I thought that was a really interesting one to move forward, and I was really excited about it. So I'll keep an eye on that. But okay, that's a thought for me. I'm going to stop now and let someone else talk.
Anyone else want to share?
Oh, sorry, I do think bike education should still move forward too. So I don't know who wants to.
Yeah. Okay.
Patricia, are you going to send out an email to everybody in the commission and ask everybody to come with a list? And then we can do the same thing we did last year? Is that what you want to
Yes.
do?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of what I was asking Amanda
Okay.
to do. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's see, commission member-initiated agenda items. I don't think we have anything. No? Okay.
Correct. There's nothing agendized, yes.
Okay. And then Commissioner Corner. So do we have, I didn't see an update for Commissioner's Corner. Was that something?
No, Commissioner's Corner, as usual, if there is a topic that commissioners would like to see on a future agenda, they just bring up the topic, and then with the support of another commissioner.
Okay. I do have something that I'd like to bring up. So I'm on on another commission, a state commission, and one of the things that we do is we rotate one of the commissioners to attend a higher level meeting that kind of impacts our commission. So I was going to suggest that to get all of the commissioners involved in attending city council meetings, perhaps we could have one commissioner at each city council meeting that would kind of, take some notes and then come back and report back to the rest of the commission. So, that doesn't prohibit anyone from attending. Of course, we can all attend. But I do think that it would be appropriate for all of us to have the same level of information from the council meetings. So I'd like to put that on the agenda for May, if that's, if I have some support from someone else. I think I need 2 people, don't I?
I think one.
Madam Chair, you need one other commissioner to support that to go on the agenda for next meeting.
Okay.
The only concern I have, Patricia, if you want to do that, is that these meetings are scheduled to be, is it 2 hours or 2.5 hours?
3 hours.
Were we given 3 hours?
Yeah. It's 5:30 to 8:30 is.
Okay. Well, in the average city council meeting lasts about 4 hours. And there's 3 of them per month. So that's 12 hours, and it's a lot of important stuff. I don't understand how we're going to be able to, maybe you want to, and a lot of it has to do with traffic, probably 50% or close to it. The other part is housing. And then there's a lot of other items too, obviously. I'm not saying let's not do it. I'm just saying let's pay attention to how much time of our meeting that would take, because everybody can attend the meetings remotely, or the city council meetings remotely or in person, and do that on their own. And I would encourage everybody to do it personally, because so much of the business we do here is discussed there.
So I'd like to make sure we don't have a discussion on this. So either there's support from one other commissioner and it can be agendized for discussion, Commissioner Meddock, or there's not, and it won't be agendized.
Okay. Well, I don't really see any support, so we'll just table that until further notice. No worries. Okay, let's see, anything else that commissioners would like to bring up at this time?
Yes, I didn't realize we were going to jump from HC directly to 9, so I actually had some questions for Abe on some of the ongoing projects.
Sure.
Oh, that's, Commissioner, that's item 11. That's 11A.
Well, I'm talking, I don't have control of my screen here. We've been looking at the vote on HC for about 45 minutes. It's not changing on our screen, so I can't go back
HC
and
is
forth.
the
up
future
agenda.
work plan, so there was no vote on it really. HC was discussing about how we're approaching the next fiscal year's work plan.
I think Commissioner Maddock was talking about, you're talking about the list of projects that are city projects, correct?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
We have 29 items here.
Yeah, that's item
Was that
11A.
not part of HC?
No, HC was our next fiscal year work plan, the item that we were talking about previously.
Okay, so what was the purpose of the 29 items from the city work plan?
Is that this item?
This is an attachment in our packet. Those. They're showing up on our screen now.
Is this is item 11A. This is 11A. We haven't
Okay,
reached
I
this yet.
apologize then.
No.
Never mind.
So if there's no additional conversation about Commissioner's Corner, I can move to 11.
Sounds good.
Good, okay. So, yes, as you recall, we had conversation about projects going on in the city at our previous meetings, and it was a practice due to directions from previous commission members that we only talk about like active, bold, big projects of traffic engineering at the commission. The others are already running in the city. City council reviews them. After the direction last time or the meeting before that from commission, we kind of created a more comprehensive list of safety mobility projects going on in the city. Not all of these are traffic engineering projects. Some are CIP projects handled by our CIP team, but this is a more comprehensive list of the active projects in this fiscal year that are going on in the city for the commissioners to have an idea. Many of these will come to commission or has come to commission already, been reviewed. Some of these have not, but if I don't want to go into the details of each individual project, but if there is any specific question on any of these, I'd be happy to answer, and then obviously our director can help me.
Yeah, so let me go back to number 1. I just want to voice my objection once again to the use of the word protected when you're talking about class 4 cycle tracks. And I'd request in the future that you reuse a neutral term like class 4 cycle tracks instead of calling them safe or protected. I don't think that adjective is necessary. I'd appreciate that, but if you want to persist, I'll probably have to keep bringing this up.
I believe it's a national and state standard. I mean, it's not a phrase chosen by me. Protected bikeline is a standard phrase, but I can choose something else if commission doesn't like it.
Class 4.
I think class 4 is more appropriate in Encinitas at least.
So if it's a commission recommendation, I will. So I mean, I don't know if you want to do. I mean, it's a matter of a phrase that's standard in the state. Class 4 bikeway would be the just class. I cannot just do class. I have to say class 4 bikeway, and then we would have to use the same terminology for like class 2 bikeway, class 3 bikeway. Or no, we want to only use for protected, we want to use class 4 bikeway, and the rest of them we want to keep them the same?
Yeah, so Class 2 bike lane is well understood.
No,
for
class 2
instance.
bike lane is
So
not
we
correct.
leave that as is, yeah.
So class 2 bike lane is not correct. So the classification of the bikeways is the numbers go with bikeway. So you say class 1 bikeway, class 2 bikeway, class 3 bikeway, and they each have their own names. So class 2 is a bike lane. Class 3
Right.
bikeway is a sharrow. Class 4 bikeway is a protected bike lane. So those bikeways identified by HDM, Highway Design Manual, they each have their own names after. So we can say class 2 bikeway, or we can say bike lane.
I think bike lane is fine.
Yeah, exactly.
that one,
So,
yeah.
so this is basically an equivalent of bike lane. A protected bike lane is equivalent of bike lane for a class 4. FHWA uses a similar term, but doesn't use protected bike lanes. It uses I can use the FHWA term for it.
So I think the point here is, Commissioner Maddock, we appreciate the input. We'll take it under advisement, and we'll see if there is going to be name changes. So protected bike lanes, separated bike lanes, and class 4 bike lanes are used interchangeably in the traffic engineering industry.
They're not called lane, though. They're called, words matter. And a Class 2 is a bike lane, and we're really adamant about that, because when you get to anything that's isolated, then it's not a bike lane, even though people use that term. And
No,
we
this
work-
is
yeah.
a page from FHWA. This is a national standard, separated bike lane planning and design. This is a class 4.
So they are called protected bike lanes, separated bike lanes, or class 4 bikeways. Those are the terms of art. Those are the names. And like I said, we are happy to take that, the input under advisement, and we'll have some discussions internally of what makes the most sense.
I want to get away from the P word somehow, protected.
Okay. No, and appreciate that input.
Now, I'll try to remember to use cycle track.
No, well, cycle track's different too.
I think cycle track is a very good term for that.
So a cycle track is a little different. So like I said, we'll talk a little bit more internally. We might start utilizing just a class 4 bikeway. Now that's not as understood by just the normal everyday user, which is why we tend to use protected bike lane or separated bike lane, because normal users, they understand that. When you say a class 4 bikeway, that's not as readily understood. Even though those 3 terms of art can be used interchangeably, and they are in our industry, we do want to make sure that we are also utilizing verbiage that's understood by the users. So like I said, I think it's a very good comment, Commissioner Maddock. We appreciate it, and we'll start talking internally and see if there's, if it makes sense on some of these projects to be using class 4 bikeway in lieu of protected or separated bike lanes.
I just wanted to add that I think an important consideration, Chief Engineer Nutter, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're an attorney, so you're going to be able to help here. My understanding, as the chair of the Carlsbad MTSC told me, is that the Class 4 cycle tracks are actually not considered legally part of the roadway.
So a cycle track is different than a class 4 bikeway. There are subtle differences, but they are not the same thing. So technically a cycle track could be considered something that is separated from the roadway because it is completely physically removed from the roadway. There are barriers of some way, shape, or form, but they're not the exact same thing. They're very similar in nature. So again, I think from a standpoint of this being a discussion of nuance. I don't think we need to necessarily wade into that because I don't think it's extremely helpful. I think we want to use a project naming that is understood by the public. And, again, like I said, we'll talk about that internally, see if we can come up with names that might need to change or maybe not. But I want us to speak internally before I make a decision of making a change.
Then I'm going to segue into a question for you, Abe. On the HSIP projects, there are, I'm so used to calling them Class 4 cycle tracks, so you're saying they should be called Class 4 bikeways?
Either or, Class 4 bikeways or cycle track.
Or,
Cycle track.
okay, then I'll say cycle track.
So the Caltrans cycle tracks didn't exist in MUTCD before. When Caltrans released, I think it's DIB 82 or 89, Design Information Bulletin, providing guidelines to cities on how to design these cycle tracks, they gave them 3 names at a time. I believe FHWA calls them separated bike lanes, but Caltrans DIB 89 called them protected bike lanes, cycle tracks.
That's okay, Abe. I don't want to waste time going more into taxonomy. I accept what you guys have already said.
Yeah,
I really
so-
would like to get to the next point that I wanted to bring up because we're going to run into time issues here and other people I'm sure want input. So on the HSIP 12 projects, 3 of those projects, they were all the grants that were given, and this all took place before I was on the commission. You applied for and got these 4 grants, which was terrific, but they're all based on safety, if I understand. There had to be safe elements in order to be able to get the grants. Is that right?
Correct.
Was it necessary to use flexi posts as the safe part of that? Was that stipulated in the grant, or did you have discretion over what kind of safety devices could be used?
The protected was what scored basically to win. So we need some version of a protect. Now, the look of the bollard or the type of the physical barrier that we use, Caltrans might be flexible to, which we did, as you recall, when we brought it to commission with the direction of commission. When we went to council, we presented maximizing the spacing of these bollards when designed and to a level trying to minimize the length of the protection to still meet the criteria of the grant to show a protected bike lane, but not maximizing the use of the number of bollards there, which was the direction of council. Now we are just about to start the design process, and we'll obviously remember the direction from council when designing. When we get to a 30% or 60% commission, we'll see the design. There will be public community meetings, and during the design process, we'll obviously keep that in mind that the commission and council both want to see minimal number of bollards used.
Happy to hear that, that you're paying attention to that. I went back and reviewed the October 25th City Council meeting when this discussion took place. And that was very specifically Deputy Mayor O'Hara made the point that he wanted a minimum of that. But council did agree, and even he did agree, but he stipulated that he was only agreeing to use of any bollards because he wanted those 2 right turns. I'm talking about Encinitas Boulevard now, to go onto Ballor, correct? That was important, and he wanted the money. So I'm glad you're looking at this going forward because I want to remind you that since that vote in October 25th, we had a vote here where I made a motion to remove bollards at the top of Leucadia Boulevard where the resealing took place. But when it went to city, and that was rejected by this council, 2 members of it, which are no longer here. It might be different now. But when it went to city council, they took away all the bollards on the resealing. They made it very clear what their feelings were, the majority. And that might have been a unanimous decision. I can't remember.
So, sorry, Commissioner Maddock, just to clarify, City Council, they had the recommendation that came from this body, which was to remove the bollards on the portion of Leucadia Boulevard from I-5 to Saxony. That was also carried forward through City Council, not removing them on the entirety of Leucadia Boulevard. Just wanted that to be clear.
Well, I'm going to accept that, although I'm quite sure that they removed more than I ever motioned for here, or at least to my knowledge.
Well, they're still in place
Okay, we can
on the
disagree to
slope.
disagree. We can agree to disagree right now, but we won't resolve that. But I'm also going to point out that they voted for the option on Santa Fe Drive to eliminate the bollards. So I'm just pointing out that as you go forward with these designs, and you are taking it into account, and I appreciate that very much. So let's keep working together on that. That's great.
Commissioner Maddock, we understand council's preference for physical barriers between bike lanes. I don't think that that's anything that's lost on us at all. These projects, they were applied for our current city council. Our current city council has agreed to accept the grants and move forward. And at any time, our current city council can decide to no longer accept those grants, and those projects could be removed from our capital work list. Right now, I don't anticipate that is going to happen because our current city council did agree to move forward with those grants and adopt the grants, but that's always city council's discretion to change their mind if they want to. But we understand exactly what their sentiment is.
And I said these will all come to commission. The designs at different stages will come to commission, so you will see them and you'll be able to provide your recommendations on those designs.
I have a question about number 11, Abe. That would be East Santa Fe Drive. That was a big capital item, $2 million. It was the number that was used on the budget deliberations recently. So maybe you could, in a very, very short capsule, tell us what the intentions are there.
That was a CIP project. Our director will.
Yeah. So because I am here, I do have knowledge of these projects. If I was not here, this would be a question that we'd have to get back to you on. And just so you're aware, any capital project that we have at the city in the engineering department, we have a project manager assigned to that project. If at any time a resident, a commissioner, a council member, anyone has a question about a project on our capital list, we're more than happy to answer questions, and we do very regularly. So just wanted everyone to know that. So regarding the Santa Fe East project, this is the incorporation of nearly complete sidewalks on both the north and south side of Santa Fe, from Belor to El Camino Real, as well as the incorporation of a Class 2 bike lane in both directions from Belor to El Camino Real. We are going to have a buffered bike lane where our roadway and right-of-way widths allow, but there are some narrow sections of right-of-way through that Santa Fe corridor that will not allow buffered bike lanes, and it will just be a standard Class 2 with no buffer.
Thank you for the report, Chief Engineer. Going forward, I wanted to thank you, Abe, for the removal of the chicanes on Saxony. I was happy to see that. And then number 28 on the flashing yellows that are relatively new installations in the city. Are we doing, there was a gentleman who came to a commission meeting a few commissions ago who brought up an important issue, I think, because the flashing yellows on the left turn pedestrians are allowed to go forward because it's a green light. They may have a red pedestrian light, but pedestrians in general can be expected to try to go through the crosswalk on a green light. And they're going to be exposed to left-turning traffic from behind them. And to me, this is a potential problem with those intersections. I understand the need for mobility and moving traffic and not having it back up, and I appreciate that, but I've tried to think of what we could do to mitigate that problem. I don't know of anything. Maybe you know, Abe, but I think it is an issue that we should be asking Christy Trampos to keep an eye on. And I would hope that we could figure out something before the pedestrian gets hit that's walking through there and has a left-turning car.
I mean, as you correctly noticed, there is this balance between how much mobility you provide and then the safety is on the other side of the balance. The more congestion, the more delay you introduce to vehicles, the more safety you can provide. The relatively safe compared to not having it, obviously, option that we implemented at these intersections is the LPI, as we talked about multiple times. So when a left-turning vehicle wants to start getting their green and later on the flashing yellow, we give, depending on the intersection, 3 to 6 seconds of additional, not additional, but advanced pedestrian crossing time to the pedestrian. So a pedestrian would start entering the crosswalk before the vehicle gets their green to enter. The idea is the driver would see the pedestrian, hopefully, if they're looking properly at the left side crosswalk. Now, how many steps can a pedestrian take into the crossing, how far into the crosswalk they are to be very clearly visible to the driver? If they only step like 5 feet into the crosswalk, they might still not be visible to the driver. Now that 3 to 6 seconds we can kind of play with to kind of improve the situation. But again, that 6 seconds meaning that we're taking 6 seconds from the green off that driver in that cycle. So that LPI was implemented at the majority of the signals in the city. We didn't just do it at that flashing yellow modified signals. Pretty much every signal at major corridors of the city now has that LPI. But short of converting it to a more restricted ped crossing, meaning we only give it to them when the vehicle on that approach is on a red, which would mean like we cannot serve them at several cycles. We have to have a dedicated pedestrian phase. So it's either letting the pedestrian stop for 4 minutes, 3 minutes before they get a dedicated crossing, or giving them that dedicated crossing, but then stopping vehicles for 40, 50 seconds. The resident's question was Via Cantabria. The crossing at Via Cantabria, we're looking at about 60, 70 feet of crossing with an average 2.5, 3 feet per second. We're looking at like 35 to 40 seconds of red for the vehicle, so they have to wait for 40 seconds for one pedestrian to cross. And then another pedestrian would arrive and we have to stop the whole corridor another. So there's a trade-off. There's no, win for all, basically. So we think this LPI combined with the flashing yellow arrow at some of our intersections has been a good, effective solution. We have seen the benefits of it, especially on Encinitas Boulevard and Vulcan. It has been a very, very big help with the flow of traffic.
And it is something that we do continue to evaluate. And that also means the eyes of our sheriff's deputies. If we do start seeing that there are an unusual number of near misses, anything of that nature, we will absolutely take action. And if that's something where we have to remove a flashing yellow because we've deemed it to not be implemented quite the way that we anticipated or hoped, we'll do that. Right now, all the locations that we do have the flashing yellows, they've been working well with the conjunction of pedestrians. So unless and until we feel as though there is a concern, then we're going to continue maintaining them. Right now, we don't have anything that has a cause for concern, but a very good point and comment.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're monitoring carefully and have this uppermost in your mind. And one possible solution, if we say that there are near misses taking place, is to increase the numbers of refuge islands, I suppose. as we get more urbanized here with more traffic, start to look more like a real city, I suppose. So I have one last question. Then I won't bug you anymore. Can you tell us what the decorative stencils are on number 29? And these crosswalks?
Yes, working with Cardiff 101 and under direction of City Council, this was a council-blessed project. Staff worked with Cardiff 101. They provided us some stencils, and those were approved by City Council, but City funded it. And these were implemented at, I believe, 4 or 5 intersections in Cardiff. They're minor stamps on, I think, the second or third white bar of each side of crossing. Each crosswalk on there are multiple continental white bars. I think the second or third one, they had some stencils implemented at these. They're out there already.
Yeah, and for example, one location is San Alejo, and let's see here, I just pulled it up. Is it so San Alejo and Liverpool, and I think the city traffic engineer is going to pull it up right now just so the commissioners can get a visual. It's pretty minor in nature, but it's a neat little decorative item.
The one, do you see a location?
Yeah, so
I have Chesterfield, doesn't show it. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I think we're at item 12, adjournment. We can't vote on it. Thank you.
We can double check on this. I do think you need a motion.
To adjourn?
I think so. I don't know how council does it, but technically I think adjournment needs a motion.
I don't think anyone's going to hold it. Oh, no, I have for sure, but I just can't recall.
I just go through the neighborhoods, so. Well, the same route, like Melba, Crest. Yeah, I've got a good light. And I got my reflective jacket on. Yeah. My husband bought it when I had a scooter for a while. This is what I used to wear.
We were kind of white at night and bright yellow.
It's funny, sometimes I'm like, I put all black on, change.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be